was the same thing I wanted to talk to RFK about. Okay,
great.
Which is surviving trauma.
Yeah.
Because I took my Ayn Rand too seriously, and one of the things Rand points out is there's no contradiction in being a moral person and being a good strategic person. Good morality is good strategy. And we had dinner, and you talked to me. You're like, when you were getting canceled, that I came on your show, and this meant a lot to you.
Yeah.
Because when people go through these dark moments, you see who your friends are, who aren't. And I didn't even remember that.
Yeah.
And I didn't even hesitate for a second at the time in retrospect.
You've always had guts.
Right.
I love you for that.
So what I want to talk to you about, because it's been years now, like it's past, like you've survived it. Can you talk a bit about what that trauma is like?
Well,
or if we don't talk about it, you don't want to.
No, I don't mind.
Okay.
I think that I have a very different perspective on it now.
Okay.
And that perspective is that chaos is gonna meet you.
Yeah, right. Yes.
Chaos is gonna visit you.
But can I say something? Because we're old. We're old men.
Yeah.
When you're a kid, you're starting out. You don't have a lot of power. You try and do whatever you can to make sure no fires start.
Yeah.
And then you get older, you realize the fires are going to start. You have to know what to do when the fires start and be strong enough to survive that fire. That's my approach.
And that's always been at the back of my mind, right? Chaos is coming. It's coming, bro. I don't care. You can set your whole life up. You're going to die once.
Yeah.
You're probably, if you're lucky, going to lose everything you built.
Yeah.
And then you're going to have to rebuild yourself. But if you do it the right way, now hold on. If you're guilty, if you really screwed up, there's only one way out, and that is true repentance, in my opinion, because I believe in truth. I think it's very, very important, at least unless you're a sociopath, you can't lie. And if you did something wrong, if you really did something that hurt people, you have to pay for that in one way or another. And I don't know if that's, maybe it's like Crime and Punishment. It's one of the things. She was a wretch, adding nothing to society, but he still killed her. He still took the money. And I don't think you get away with that. I don't think that you will ever live that down because you'll always be holding on to some kind of a lie, some kind of an injustice. The way the Greeks define justice is everything in its rightful place. And I knew, what got me through was I knew that I hadn't done anything wrong.
Right.
That's very important.
Yes.
And I said to myself, there are plenty of times when chaos happens to you. It could be you're accused of, you could be put in jail for a false crime.
Sure.
You could get cancer, a stray bullet, a bad car accident disfigures you. There's a lot of things, an illness. We all face something.
Yeah.
And I think that is when you have the opportunity not only to show yourself who you've been this whole time, and if you don't know if you're that person, because you don't, you're in the middle. The idea of chaos is really you're in the middle of the ocean. The sea is raging, and you have no paddle, and you can't find shore.
Right.
It's what Teddy Atlas says. You're not a doctor until there's a kid on your gurney bleeding from everywhere, and there's nothing in the textbook that shows you how to save that kid. You're not a fighter until your whole game plan goes out the window. That guy knows your game plan, and you have to find a way to win.
Do you know what all my comic friends told me to do? The one piece of advice they all had? And Roseanne said this yesterday. You have to bomb.
You have to bomb.
You have to go up there and bomb and know what to do when you bomb. Then you're a comic. They all said that. It was really interesting. They're very different people. They all said you have to bomb.
Everything in life is this way.
Yeah.
You can train jiu-jitsu and boxing. You want to be a fighter? I mean, you're not. That's why the difference in a SEAL Team 6 guy and some guy who's a black belt in jiu-jitsu in a classroom. Very different. Fighting for your life is a very different situation.
Of course, yeah.
And I think that the gold, the hidden gold in chaos is if you're going through chaos. I said to myself, my goal is to look back in 5 years and say, as crazy as it sounds, I wouldn't change this if I could.
You thought that at the time?
No, at the time. But I said that to myself.
Okay.
Because at the time, you lose everything.
Right.
And you lose it as fast as, how the sea pulls back into itself? That's how fast everything goes away. That's how fast, especially in 2020. And I just, and it made it, of course, you're like, what? 23 years ago, what? It doesn't make any sense. But it doesn't matter because at that time, anybody could say a woman gets a story and you get a statement.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Or he denied it. Like
Doesn't
when they
matter.
you get a sentence. Yeah.
But that's why I made a video and all that. I was like, I'm not going down like this. I'm at least I'm going to fight and talk. And I didn't want to just post a statement. I wanted people to look at my mouth when I said it. But it doesn't matter. It didn't matter. That's what happened. And now when I look at myself, I look at pictures of myself before all of that. You know what I see? I see an arrogant prick who walked around like he was one of God's favorites.
Okay.
I don't like that guy as much. I like this guy. I like
that guy better. Can we get him back on the show?
More fun, right? More fun. Yeah, more fun. But and maybe I'll find out. Maybe I'm back in A. The night is still young. Let's do some blow. Yeah, and by the way, in life sometimes you get hit with a brick, when you're walking down the street. But ask yourself this question. Were you walking through a neighborhood where they were throwing a lot of bricks? That's an important question, So there's always that too. Right? Look at what your role was in this. What were the decisions you were making to put yourself in a situation where chaos visited you? Sometimes nothing.
Sure.
Other times, but don't shy from that either,
But
That's
how do you keep? I've been in traumatic situations.
Yeah.
And how did you, or maybe you didn't, but what would you have told yourself? Because everyone watching the show is going to get that phone call. It's mom. Something happened at school.
Yeah.
It's that day when your life changes forever. Yeah. How did you keep from spiraling?
Strength and truth.
Okay.
All I care about is being strong. My father said to me, you've wanted to be a tough guy your whole life. And now you have a chance.
At the time he said that when this was happening? Holy shit.
He said, now you got a chance to see if you're really a tough guy.
Oh, wow.
Now you got a chance.
Yeah, he went all Karate Kid on you.
Yeah, because he knew the truth. There are things he saw and that there were things. And he was like, oh boy. It was funny too, because there's a show called The Behavior Panel on YouTube.
Yeah.
And
Okay, so Callen talking about the accusations against him that destroyed his career. Here's the problem when it comes to the accusations against Bryan Callen. They're actually very credible. Meaning, he was accused of what he was accused of against the Tigerman lady, right? Here's the problem. She has people at the time, right after the incident, who she told her boyfriend, and now it's her ex-boyfriend from like 20 years ago, but she's married to someone new. And the ex-boyfriend came forward and said, yeah, at the time, she told me this incident happened with Bryan Callen. And it was like later that day she told him. And not only that, Bryan Callen sued her and then dropped the lawsuit. So, but however you think about it, that accusation did destroy Bryan Callen's career. He had to leave the Fighter and the Kid podcast, and he came back, but the podcast was already dead. He had a career in Hollywood. It just started taking off, too. And then first the D'Elia thing happened. He threw D'Elia under the bus, saying he never really ever hung out with him, which was a lie. But you got to remember, him and D'Elia had a Netflix deal to have their own show together. That all went away. And then he was going to go work for Steven Crowder. He quit doing that. And now he's going to move to Texas because he's got a residency at the Comedy Mothership. And Brendan Schaub is following him. And they keep making statements like, I'll do the show for free. Well, they're paying, well, he may not be, but Brendan Schaub is paying to do the Fighter and the Kid podcast because of all the overhead, and the podcast is dead. So, I mean, his career was completely destroyed by those accusations. Whether guilty or not, it just is what it is. And, I mean, he can have whatever outlook he has going forward, but, I mean, he did make that Tigerman his girlfriend now, at least for that day. But crazy. Let me know your thoughts in the comments.